Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So friends, first of all, happy Thanksgiving to all of our friends, all of our Team Justice members who are out there fighting for it, fighting for decency and kindness and inclusivity, and fighting for the rule of law. I am proud, I am honored to be standing with you shoulder to shoulder, fighting for the health and viability of American democracy. So a couple of things about today's Justice Matters video. First of all, I sat down for a candid conversation with my friend, and I do mean friend, Mike Fanone. The reason I call Mike my friend is because long before he became one of the faces of law enforcement heroism at the U.S. Capitol on January 6th, decades before that, Mike and I worked some murder cases together in the streets of Washington, D.C. He was an MPD police officer, narcotics officer, an undercover officer, and I was a homicide prosecutor, and our paths crossed, and we got to work some cases together. So I've known Mike for a very long time. And, you know, we sat down and had kind of a wide-ranging, candid conversation about where we feel our country and our democracy is at this moment and the direction in which we're heading. And now I have two quick asks of you. Neither one will cost you a dime. First of all, I've been told I'm not a very good YouTuber because I never do ask the viewers to please hit subscribe. You know, subscribing to my YouTube channel, Justice Matters, costs absolutely nothing. Never has and never will. I don't believe in putting any of my content behind a paywall, but it does help if you'll just hit that subscribe button. And then the second thing is, you know, every night I go on Substack live at about 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time for what we call our community meeting. It is a great place to find community and to talk about the legal issues of the day and how we can all continue to engage in this fight, this battle for the rule of law and for American democracy. So if you want to come on over to Substack, you can find me at glennkirshner.substack.com, and you can subscribe for free. I don't put anything behind a paywall, and then you can join us live nearly every night at about 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time for our community meeting. In fact, that is where we recorded the conversation that you're about to see with Mike Fanone. And friends, just keep fighting for it in every way you can, peacefully, always peacefully, fighting for decency and kindness, empathy, inclusivity, and yes, diversity. Just keep fighting for it. We are all in this mess together, and that's the way we're going to win it, together. Because justice matters.
As I was just telling my friend Mike, I asked all of our community members here, we have our nightly community meetings, who do you all want me to invite on? And believe it or not, Mike's name kept popping up. So you all ask and you shall receive. So this is my friend, and I do mean friend Mike Fanone. Mike and I worked some murder cases decades ago in DC. He was a street cop, a narcotics guy, an undercover officer. I was a homicide prosecutor, and he happened to get involved in and have some really important evidence in connection with a murder that I ended up trying. Someday, Mike, you and I are going to have to jump on here for 30 minutes and just do a run through the termite murder case, start to finish, because it started out as an unhappy story, but it kind of had a happy ending, and it was an unusual trajectory. So we got to do that some night. But tonight I want to talk about what's going on in the world. So first of all, let me welcome my friend, and I'm going to say it again, American hero and girl dad, Mike Fanone. Mike, thanks for being with us.
Of course, thank you, and I'm honored that that your community would choose me. So thank you, guys.
So what we do here at our nightly community meetings, we usually talk about the legal issue of the day. But when we have guests on, I just like to open it up to you, talk about, what is your take on where we are? And that can be the legal front, the law enforcement front, the military front, the political front, or anything else. Where do you see us right now in this fight for American democracy? And what's your sense about the direction we're heading in?
I mean, I'm cautiously optimistic. You know, First I got to thank you for inviting me to my first ever protest. Glenn and I, for those of you who don't know, we attended the Leesburg, Virginia No Kings 1. No Kings 2, I was in Washington, D.C., where there was 250,000 plus that turned out. And, each one of those events really does give me hope. And I'm probably the most pessimistic person that I know. Unfortunately, I think that it's a result of the inhumane, unconstitutional actions that have been taken by this administration that are now starting to impact so many Americans that have resulted in these, record-breaking turnouts. I mean, we saw more than 7 million. I think some estimates have it closer to 8 million Americans and others abroad who turned out to protest this administration in an unprecedented turnout. In the history of this country. But I also recognize the fact that the closer we get to holding Donald Trump and his lawless administration accountable, whether that's at the ballot box or otherwise, he seems to lash out even more. I mean, you and I both know, as being veterans of the criminal justice system, and when criminals are placed in a corner or painted into a corner, that's typically when they tend to become most violent and lash out the most. And I think that's what we're seeing right now from this president. And it's scary stuff. And I think that, that has me thinking that, while we are headed in the right direction, I don't think that we've seen the worst that Donald Trump and his administration have to offer.
Yeah, Mike, one of the things that we talk about a lot here is how it seems that our criminal justice systems, plural, because some of what I'm going to take on a little bit later is what happened in the Georgia RICO case today. It seems that for what I call ruling class criminals, the influential, the connected, the powerful, the wealthy, usually that means white men.
Yep.
It seems like the rule of law for them is optional. It seems like our systems of justice don't have the appetite or the courage or the decency or a combination of those things to hold the ruling class criminals accountable. And, when you talk about criminals being cornered, yeah, they get dangerous and they get reckless when they're cornered, but they also get emboldened when they feel like there is no accountability for their crimes. And we have seen that over and over and over again. And you and I both know, because we handle lots and lots and lots of investigations, arrests, and prosecutions in DC, more than we could ever count. I feel like if you're a poor black kid who's selling a rock of crack or boosting a car or shoplifting a stick of deodorant from a CVS, we're going to jump on you with both feet. We're going to make sure you're held accountable for your crime. And we know what that crime is a product of for the most part. It is, it's addiction, it's mental health problems, it's homelessness, it's joblessness, it's a lack of education, it's a combination of those things. Lack of opportunity. And but we're going to jump on you. We're going to hold you accountable. We're going to put you in the system. But if you are a member of the ruling class, and I don't care if it's big tech, big oil, big pharma, big entertainment, big the military industrial complex, big finance, banking, you know, if you engage in massive crime, often white collar fraud type crime, where you're victimizing large swaths of the American population, you know what we do to you? We'll negotiate a non-prosecution agreement with you. We'll make you pay fines and back taxes and penalties and interest. And then what do? They realize that they can get away with it. It's just an operating expense for them. They then roll all that into their operating budget. They pass, the expense on to us, the consumers, and they do it again. Why do they do it again? Because we didn't hold them accountable the first time or the second time or the third time. Mike, give me one day as Attorney General. I will flip the priorities of DOJ on their head. We'll go after the ruling class criminals. We're not going to ignore the street crime because there are victims in every street crime as well. But, we're going to flip the script. And you know how much good we could do for this country if we tackled the ruling class criminals?
Oh, I know. And, all the things that you just described, the sweetheart deals, so to speak, for, the ruling class criminals, all of those things existed under previous administrations. This administration has done away with any accountability whatsoever for that ruling class of criminals. They've eliminated public corruption investigators in both the FBI and the Department of Justice. I mean, they have completely taken away all the mechanisms for holding those individuals accountable, reassigned, career prosecutors and special agents with federal agencies that would typically go after people like that. That doesn't exist anymore. And then the ones that do, quote unquote, fall through the cracks and actually get held accountable for their actions, Donald Trump just pardons them.
Yeah.
Whether you are the founder of, what was that dark web narcotics distribution ring, the Silk Road, pardoned. Whether you're, involved in the largest crypto scheme, which now Donald Trump is benefiting from to the tune of $800 billion. All of those individuals have been pardoned, and not only pardoned, but brought into, the Trump inner circle as close confidants. This is the most corrupt administration in the history of the United States.
It's a lawless executive branch, and frankly, it looks a lot like a RICO organization, racketeer influenced and corrupt organization. It's being run as a criminal enterprise. And, shame on us if we don't finally deal with this when the rule of law comes back into the light of day. And I believe it will. But when you look at how they just went down in flames, the administration, on the James Comey and Letitia James vindictive and lawless prosecutions, you think they might be a little bit deterred, but what do? Now they turn around and they threaten 6 members of Congress with both military and civilian criminal investigations. And what those 6 members of Congress did was they essentially cracked open the Uniform Code of Military Justice and the Manual for Courts Martial, which was our Bible for our the way we handled courts martial cases, and they read from it. They read accurately and truthfully that military members must disobey illegal orders. And in fact, if they obey legal orders, they can get court-martialed. And, in the fact that even though other cases went down in flames, here they are initiating criminal investigations with zero evidence. Talk about a lack of adequate predication to open a criminal investigation because they don't learn. They double down, they triple down because they're feeling themselves right now because there is no accountability. But that's going to change. And that's why you and I continue to do this, Mike, because it's going to come back, and they're going to get what's coming to them. That is really our goal and our mission. That's why we're in this fight every day.
Absolutely. And I like the sound of United States Attorney General Glenn Kirshner. I hope that becomes a reality. I would be looking forward to that.
Yeah, you want to be director of the FBI, Mike?
I mean, the bar has now been set quite low. I feel as though I could not do any worse than Kash Patel.
No kidding. What an embarrassment. And we couldn't do, nobody could do any worse than Pam Bondi as Attorney General. It's such an embarrassment. But I feel like we're going dark and we want to be light.
Right.
So let me ask you this. What gives you hope and optimism? What leaves you optimistic?
I mean, first and foremost, I would say the turnout at some of these events, the conversations that I have with people, specifically the conversations that I have with people that I wouldn't necessarily describe as MAGA, like hardcore MAGA, but people that voted for Donald Trump in this last election cycle, who are now starting to come around or have come around to, the idea that that Donald Trump is a grifter, that this administration is, at best an embarrassment, at worst, like we both described, the most corrupt and lawless administration in the history of this country. And they are eager to make up for their mistake and looking forward to, to righting that wrong at the ballot box. But I mean, I've also had an opportunity. I mean, we were talking offline before I got on here. I started traveling the country, going to different places, mostly small town America, and talking to high school students, civic organizations, about staying engaged, about what it means to maintain a democracy, that it's more than just turning out every 2 years and voting. And I think that if and when we are, and I'll say when we are able to right this ship, we're going to have a generation of Americans, young Americans who have grown up only knowing Donald Trump as the president of the United States, who are ready to be engaged, to stay engaged, if for no other reason than to prevent this from ever happening again.
Let me finish with this, Mike. You were a Metropolitan Police Department officer for 20 years. Now you are in this new chapter of your life where you're, in a very real sense, a democracy warrior. You're fighting for the health and viability of American democracy. You're trying to educate. You're trying to inspire. I can tell the people, you got the crowd whipped up when you spoke at that first rally, that No Kings Day rally on the steps of the historic Loudoun County Courthouse. And I was proud to be standing there with you. If you had your pick of jobs or professions, once we get our country back on track, what would you want to do in the ideal situation?
I mean, I would like to return to law enforcement. I don't know in necessarily in what capacity that would be, but I do feel like my career was kind of ripped away from me unceremoniously. I felt like I had a lot more to offer, and especially now, having 5 years, almost 5 years separated from the Metropolitan Police Department, and the benefit of so many conversations, having learned so much that I would like to return to the field of law enforcement, more so I think at the national level.
Well, I can say from firsthand experience, the people of DC were lucky to have you protecting and serving them for 2 decades, and I think the country is fortunate that you are now speaking out in the way you are. And I will say it every time I see you. You are one of the heroes of January 6th. You answered the call that day. You weren't on duty patrolling the U.S. Capitol. That wasn't your job. But the distress call came out. You went there. You damn near got killed trying to protect the Capitol, everybody in the Capitol, and our American democracy. So we thank you for that. And where can people find you? And I'm going to ask everybody on this live Substack to please click over to Mike's Substack page when we're done here and subscribe. He gave almost everything for this country and for us and for our democracy. You can certainly give him a follow on Substack. But where else can people find you, Mike?
Yeah, so I have the Substack. We do almost daily op-eds. I also do for paid subscribers. I have a YouTube channel, the Michael Fanone Show, where I do. We usually we're doing 2 stories a day. Some people have referred to it as the angry news. I think that's just my temperament and my tone. But we break down stories about the administration, some of the usually it's in the law enforcement vein, but you can find me on YouTube. Please subscribe to the Michael Fanone Show. I'm also on Instagram, but all of that content is spread out across all of the different platforms. Please like, follow, subscribe if you can. It's for people like Glenn and I that are in this independent news space, we survive off of our subscribers and people that follow our content. So it's greatly appreciated. I also have a GoFundMe that's set up. There's a couple of videos. If you guys take a look they're on my Substack. They're also on the YouTube channel and Instagram. I'm doing these traveling trips throughout the country. The last one that we did was a couple weeks ago. We went to West Virginia. We spoke with, civic groups. We spoke with different high school students. We spoke with some college students as well. And the purpose of it is not just to educate people about January 6th and my experience that day, but to remind people of the importance of, like we were saying earlier, maintaining our democracy and what that takes and staying engaged. And also the fact that you may feel as though your voice doesn't matter or your voice can't be heard, but that's not true. I'm somebody who came from humble origins of being a low-ranking DC police officer and had an experience and told the truth and have continued to do so since then. And it's really as simple as that. And so I just encourage people to get involved, to stay involved, that their voice matters, that people care about their perspective in this country. And hopefully when we right this ship, people like that will prevent it from ever happening again.
Yeah. And we're going to get there. I have no doubt we're going to get there. I mean, I don't know when, I don't know how this Trump administration is going to implode. And then we're going to be there both to carry out the cleanup mission and to rebuild and to hold them accountable.
I mean, to end on a really high note, Glenn, there is that Tennessee race that's happening in a plus 22 Trump district, where the Democratic candidate is within the margin of error, and even in some polls now reporting to be ahead of the Republican candidate, which is pretty incredible.
Yeah.
So, we might even get a majority in the House before the midterms, which, fingers crossed would be tremendous.
And there is that new reporting. I'm not sure if it was Axios that said that Marjorie Taylor Greene is not going to be the only Republican to resign. There are others apparently that are looking to do the same, and I'm all for it.
I'm glad you mentioned that. I got the same tip from a friend of mine who's a congressional correspondent, and she was telling me the same thing, that there's going to be a number of others that follow suit in the next upcoming weeks. So
good news.
Fingers crossed. Good
Happy
news.
Thanksgiving. All right, Mike.
Likewise.
Thank you for your service, buddy. Thanks for jumping on, and we'll have to do this again.
Of course. Thanks, Glenn.
All right, man.
See you.